hard to believe that on February 19th, we're going to have two primarily pro sports television networks with HBCU sports on blast. It's your boy, the HBCU OG Mark Gray, along with Steve Wyche, NFL Network, who is an OG in his own right from Howard University. Even though he is so cool on TV, you would never know that he is as old as me. What is up, Steve?
You know how it is. I'm just right on brand, bro. You know how it is. Right on brand for the Bison. I'm so glad to be able to do this, man. I love you repping Morgan State. You know, you're right at the road from Howard U. There's so many great Morgan State alums. You know, Bill Roden, April Ryan, yourself, so many great ones, man. So I love what you do, my man.
Yeah, but in my lifetime, I haven't had a vice president as an alumnus in the White House. But
what about a Supreme Court justice?
Well, okay. Can't claim that either.
Governors?
I do have a link to the blood plasma thing, and with Dr. Charles Drew.
Okay.
And we do have a link to Clarence Big House Gaines, who did get his degree from Morgan. So I think we're doing pretty good. I did want to get your perspective on that. I mean, when we were on our respective yards, we were reduced to sort of like, hopefully we could see a team or HBCU game with its flavor on national TV. Now we got them on two networks on the same day. How big is that?
Yeah, when we won our yards, man. I mean, look, we didn't have the advent of this abundance of cable television and streaming and things like that. But on February 19th, I'll speak specifically to the Legacy Bowl that's going to take place in New Orleans. It will be on NFL Network. And with the Black College Football Hall of Fame, of which I'm a member of the selection committee, when we started thinking about ways to bring attention to HBCU football players, because over the last 2 years, only one player from an HBCU has been drafted in the NFL. We were like, what can we do? So we came up with this with the Legacy Bowl. And I pitched it to my network at NFL Network, and they were all over it. They were all in. Let's go ahead. And, it's right in the middle of all of our regular kind of combine, all-star bowl season with the East-West Bowl and the Senior Bowl and the Legacy Bowl. And we're giving this full-blown attention. We're going to treat it like the Senior Bowl. So a lot of these HBCU players, the Jermaine Martins and Akil Glasses of the world, they're going to get the exposure. I mean, the whole impetus of this whole thing, Mark, is so these NFL teams, the Canadian Football League teams, and XFL and USFL teams, there's no excuses. There's going to be no excuses not to know about these young men, their coaches, their trainers, anybody affiliated with the programs. So when they have an opportunity to matriculate to the NFL or to matriculate to the front office, you know who they are. We're clearing the pipeline right now. We don't have to establish a pipeline. A pipeline of talent is there. We're clearing that pipeline so people know who they are.
I just find it ironic that, again, to your point of not having any HBCU players drafted the last 2 years, Super Bowl coming up, we don't have any HBCU players representing either the Bengals or the Rams. I can't remember in my lifetime seeing something like that. What do you think is the genesis of that?
Well, look, I mean, part of it is a lot of the professional level talent just isn't going to HBCU schools, anymore. But at the same time, there are diamonds in the rough, right? There are players, I'll think of Kadarrell Hodge, a wide receiver. I believe he's with Detroit now, came out of Prairie View. The Rams took him in the 6th or 7th round 5 or 6 years ago. He had a nice run, especially on special teams, stepped up to play some wide receiver, went to the Browns and was a big special teams player. It was kind of like a priority guy for the Lions. Like, there are developmental guys like that. But the one thing we have found when you talk to people from HBCUs is that a lot of times these NFL teams, these regional scouts, they're just passing through these black colleges now instead of doing their due diligence. Now, some teams always do their due diligence. Teams like the Patriots and some others, they really sink their teeth in to these black colleges. So why there haven't been more drafted, it's really a shame. A lot of these guys, sign on as undrafted free agents and catch on. But I think now that there is, ESPN has been really showing a lot of attention to these black colleges. What Dion has done, having a name like Eddie George, at Tennessee State, now Hugh Jackson at Grambling, there does seem to be somewhat of a renaissance in HBCU athletics. And I think that's going to grab the attention of the networks, because the networks aren't going to do anything unless it's going to generate income and revenue for them, right? That's any network, right? Don't think all of this is out of the goodness of their hearts. But at the same time, when you have so many people like myself and Jay Walker, at ESPN, other people pushing and saying, look, we've got something here. I mean, that really helps as well to bring attention, because it is all about creating opportunities for these people.
It's interesting to note that you bring that up, because in games that I've called around the country often, I've had, and quite frankly, some regional scouts who look like me, Black American men, we like, shh, cut down. We're trying to get him as an undrafted free agent.
Yeah.
Is there some kind of financial benefit to finding somebody that's not draftable, but still of, talent enough to make an NFL roster? I mean,
to some degree, there could be, like, maybe as an undrafted guy.
There is no guaranteed money. I get that.
Right. There's no guaranteed money. But look, if you're drafted in the 7th round, that's pretty much the same. There might be a different signing bonus, which is not going to be generational wealth. It's not a signing bonus that late in the draft. Isn't even going to get you probably through the year in terms of that type of financial situation. So possibly to some degree, but some teams may only have a limited amount of draft picks, 5 out of 7 or whatever. And they say, okay, we're trying to get this guy as an undrafted guy. Because one, it makes a regional scout look better. Like, he's doing his homework. Right. Hey, I got this guy for us on the sneak tip. Right. And so that makes him look better. But I think now we just need to focus on however you can get in. Take the opportunity, whether it's an undrafted free agent, whether you do get drafted. Because look, sometimes if you get to the 6th and 7th round, you getting drafted might actually harm you. If you're an outside linebacker and you're going to a team that's got, 2 really established guys, what are your odds of ever getting into the rotation? But if you're an undrafted guy, you can kind of pick and choose if you're at that level. So again, we want folks to get drafted, though. We want them to have that on their resume, and to get an opportunity to show that there is talent at these Black colleges.
Steve Wyche joins us from the NFL Network, pride of Howard University, as we continue on the HBCU Sports Nation. To this year's game, you mentioned a couple of guys that have stood out during the regular season. Jermaine Martin, we really didn't get to see the best of him because he was injured for a good
part of the season. He was nicked up. Yep.
But I want to use him in the context for our mainstream fan, being that he is from North Carolina A&T, and they have a budding superstar who we hope can recover from his knee injury, in Tariq Cohen. How much do you think the success of Cohen will impact the possibility of Martin being drafted?
Well, I mean, one thing teams tend not to do is say, okay, look, they produce running backs or they produce wide receivers. But if they know they come in, they're well coached, right? Something they've got going on in North Carolina A&T. They play a competitive brand of football. They're no longer in the MEAC, right? They're in the Big South. So maybe they figure the competition has been a little bit better. So, but the fact that Tariq, one thing that you'll find with any player who comes from an HBCU, whether it's, Javon Hargrave with the Eagles or Darius Leonard or Tariq, is they came out of the mud. They had to work a little harder because they didn't necessarily have the training table that the kids from the SEC had, or the weight room, or all the 15 different uniforms or warm-ups that these guys from the Pac-12 have. So they kind of came up the hard way. So there seems to be an edge that some teams, not all teams, understand comes. So yes, the success of Tariq will bring people to A&T and maybe to some other Black colleges, and maybe because Jermaine Martin's a running back. But, they're different body types. Jermaine is, 5'10", 220. He's built like a Cam Akers type of running back, and he's got that potential. So hopefully he gets healthy and shows himself well in the Legacy Bowl.
You mentioned Akil Glass, who has the measurables of an NFL quarterback. I know there was a HBCU combine and he got some favorable results, but we all know the stigma that face not only Black quarterbacks, but particularly Black quarterbacks from historically Black colleges. How do you rate his chances, or what are you hearing about the buzz of him in particular at what's considered the most important spot in team sports?
Yeah, now remember, Akil did not go to the HBCU Combine. He participated in the Collegiate Bowl, and he
Okay.
played well. He played in the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl, and he played well. I think he threw a touchdown, almost led his team to a comeback. Look, Akil played in a certain scheme at Alabama A&T, that kind of shotgun RPO scheme. So he's going to be immediately tagged as a developmental quarterback because he wasn't under center a lot. When you play in that scheme, your throws are kind of predetermined early. In the NFL, you've got to really be a little bit more nimble in terms of deciphering defenses. So he'll be termed as a developmental guy, but I think he's viewed as a draftable player, probably a second or third day draftable player. He's not going to go in the first round. There's going to be very few quarterbacks who go in the first round. But again, he's somebody, you talked about the measurables. And this is what these NFL teams, some teams do a great job of developing players, and other teams are just like, we have to win now. We got to just rush as many guys as possible. So if Akil gets, hopefully he goes into a system where you've got a really good quarterback developer, like a Josh McDaniels, who is now with the Raiders, right? We saw what he did with the rookie from Alabama last year. So he came in and got him going. So, or if he goes to a team where Pep Hamilton is the OC, like this guy's really good at developing young quarterbacks, where some teams just don't do that, right? They just continue to recycle the veteran quarterbacks and build their game plans out from there. So if he doesn't have to play for a year or two, that's fine, as long as he starts to understand the nuances of the league, the business of the league, and how to really learn how to be a good NFL quarterback. Again, it is all about opportunity, and then it's up to him to seize it.
Steve Wyche joins us from the NFL Network, the pride of Howard University, one of the great sports journalists to come out of that program. And, and when you start talking about sports journalism and African-Americans in the game, Howard's done an outstanding job. But back to football specifically for a second, and the new era, or the new fashionable thing with the big-time former NFL coach coming to the sidelines. Are you sensing that players are gravitating towards those coaches now, those programs that have pro coaches, or are they gravitating towards the culture of the HBCU experience?
I'm assuming you're talking about the recruits and transfers.
Yeah, the
players
recruits.
themselves. So no, that's a great question. So I do think in part it has a lot to do with the coach. Like, Deion Sanders getting, 2 top 40 players. Deion's got the prestige, right? He's brought the television cameras to Jackson State. He's brought the fan base back to Jackson State. They're winning. Like, they've got players down there at Jackson State. So that helps. Deion's got connects all through the NFL world to get scouts and teams to come down there to look at these guys, but he also has connects in the business world and the entertainment world. So, these are some of the promises that, coaches at USC and coaches at Oregon and coaches at Florida tell their players, like, hey, you come here, we can get you to the NFL. Well, Deion can say the same thing. Eddie George can say the same thing. I mean, he's got people who used to, both of these coaches, I should say, have assistant coaches who used to play in the NFL. So they can teach you how to be a good player because they know what an NFL player looks like, right? And again, that pipeline to get guys to the league, they've got phone calls they can make, and so that's important. So Hugh Jackson, you talk about a dude who's got connections. Like, one, Hugh can coach. Scrap that record. Yeah, scrap that record in Cleveland. There was a lot of dysfunction going on in that building. He was a very good coach, right? A very good leader. And watch what he does to Grambling, and it will not take long because you see some of the players he's getting in the transfer portal down there.
Well, for those of us who know anything about the culture and the inner workings, for you to be a coach at Grambling and flip to Southern recruits by virtue of the fact that you sign an exclusive name, image, and likeness deal, man, that's seismic. And as I'll be honest, I'm a Southern apologist. My folks taught at Southern for 5 years. I grew up early on with the grammar school off of 78th Avenue and the whole bit. So Southern is part of my DNA. When I heard that, I was like, oh boy, there could be a seismic shift. I mean, but that's the kind of shift that we're looking that's going on. So is it sustainable, or is this a flavor of the month kind of thing?
We'll see. I mean, that's a great question because, you're hearing about more and more NFL players with interest in coaching saying, well, let me start out at an HBCU because this stuff that's happening in the NFL it's just not, I'm not really feeling it. And I think a lot of the black former players, especially, when Dion and Eddie and Hugh, and then even some of the other, the Buddy Pughs of the world, they're telling some of these guys, or they're having conversations about what it means, to be at an HBCU. I think a lot of these guys are curious. Todd Bowles came up through Morehouse and Grambling. He can tell these guys like what it's like and how fun it is and how enriching it is as an overall experience. You're not going to make the money you're going to make at one of these big schools, but a lot of these guys are generationally wealthy already. And so if they can build a program, we'll see if it sustains. Maybe next year Dion does such a good job, he gets an offer to go coach, at a Power 5 school. So what, right? So what? Then now someone's going to come in behind him and continue this. I mean, we can't sit there, and be the crabs in a bucket and say,
Right.
oh, well, he just came here to get to the next level. What did Lincoln Riley do? He was at Oklahoma. Now he goes to USC. White coaches do the same thing too at PWIs. So, we just have to understand that all of us, when we're coming up through the pipeline, are doing things, yes, to establish a foothold, but we're also trying to make things better individually and for the program. And if Dion gets Jackson State's program, to a certain point, the results will speak for themselves. And then people will continue to go there. They'll continue to attract good coaches to come there that increase the revenue so the recruiting budgets can go up, and so on and so on. So that's something I really hope, if Dion or Eddie or Hugh or someone else goes on to bigger and better, that we're just like, oh, he just used us as a stepping stone. So what? That is the way of life in corporate America. That is the way of life for anybody. But is Jackson State worse when Dion leaves than it was before he got there? And that's the big question people would need to ask.
What do you think the role of Black American reporters are in terms of conveying this message? I understand that there are a myriad of things that are going on right now, but back in the day, had it not been for like the Bill Nunns, the Sam Lacey's, Chico Renfro in Atlanta, the
Roscoe Nantes,
guys like that, Ernie Reese in Atlanta,
right?
These were guys that I looked up to. I was one of those kids that went and got the Jet magazine, not for the beauty of the week, was because
Don't lie.
Well, I did pass through and take a stop, but I was really more the sports geek who wanted those standings, because that was the only place that I could get the standings back in the day. And thank God for, the Johnson folks who had those two platforms, and Jet was the one that kept us in the know. How important is that role that we play these days when we've got such a new world of media that you don't necessarily need the mainstream to keep getting the word out?
I think to some degree. But I think that just to pigeonhole Black reporters to do it isn't necessarily fair to them, because a lot of Black reporters didn't have the HBCU experience, right? So for them to say, okay, let's talk about HBCUs and HBCUs, it might be more out of a curiosity thing. So in that regard, why can't white reporters, why can't, Latino and Asian reporters do the same thing? When you're seeing Dion get, the top recruit in the country to come to Jackson State, when you're seeing Hugh Jackson flip, a player from UCLA, in the transfer portal to come down, why can't they get on that as well? Because again, there does seem to be a renaissance. Now, in saying that, this is where people like myself and Stan Verrett, my classmate, at Howard, who's on SportsCenter, and Gus Johnson, who went to Howard, and Jay Walker. Notice I'm naming all the Howard folks, but a lot of people who are in the sports media, because we have that connection and we know what going to an HBCU did for us personally, professionally, and everything else. I do think we have a responsibility, and from everyone I know who's in the media who went to a historically Black school, we champion this cause.
Right.
And so I'm proud of that. Shannon Sharp, he's always repping Savannah State. And so, I'm proud of that. I don't think we'll ever run from it. And hopefully we're setting an example for those who come up behind us to always stand up and recognize, and again, try to create opportunities and awareness of these Black colleges, because people used to go to HBCUs because they had to. Now we go to them voluntarily because we can get just as good of an education at Morgan, at Bowie, at Cheney, as you can get at University of Maryland, or you can get, at Morehead State or whatever.
Interesting that you bring that up, because when I had my cup of coffee in Bristol, I still got the wounds, the scars from the wounds when I brought that up, because like in the early 2000s, people were like, what do we need black colleges for? Black people can go to mainstream institutions. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. It's about a cultural experience. It did not resonate. But let's pivot just
real quick. When people say that to me, you know what I say?
What?
Well, white people come to HBCUs.
Well, that's true now.
They're not exclusive. They're not exclusive.
They're not, especially with this, new world like Morgan State. I was at the Howard game that y'all won a couple of weeks ago, and I was shocked at the demographics in the stands rocking the orange and blue, who are proud student body members at Morgan. I'm looking at the diversity that's coming through there, which is something interesting to watch. And I'm pretty sure you're seeing the same thing in your travels.
Well, when I was at Howard, I mean, we have plenty of students with different backgrounds, white, Indian, whatever, on campus. So yeah, it is a historically black university and college with majority of the students being black students. And it was good for me because I went to a predominantly white high school. I had never had this type of, enrichment in black culture and black history and just black friendship. And so what it did for me was incredible. And so look, we talk about being comfortable around people. Within 2 or 3 days, I felt like I was at home. And I'd never felt like that before. So, look, to each his own on that. But, again, I think those of us who've passed through, I've never heard anybody tell me that, hey, I didn't like my experience going to a black college.
Nah, not at all. It was definitely a life-changing experience. All right, I want to bring it home a little bit, talk about some of those headlines that are making news around the NFL. How deep is this Brian Flores thing? It's so salacious, it's almost unbelievable. And I'm speaking from the competitive integrity piece of, I know the hiring practices story, that's been well documented for years. But if there's some truth to this, with the relationship now that the league has with, the gambling world, which led to some of the great icons back in the day being suspended for a year, Joe Namath, Paul Hornung come to mind.
Yeah, Alex Pierce.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, how fast does the NFL have to get their arms around this before this becomes really something bigger than just a race opportunity for jobs thing?
So you're talking about Brian Flores accusing Dolphins owner Stephen Ross, offering him $100,000 per loss to basically tank games.
Right.
Like, if we're playing basketball, it's point shaving. So look, I mean, hopefully the NFL does a thorough investigation of this, like they did in the bullying situation with the Dolphins. They brought in Robert Mueller, we know the famous Mueller report, to investigate that. Or they did when the Saints bouncy gate or the deflate gate. Hopefully do a thorough enough investigation and not dismiss it as, someone being pissed because he got fired, trying to get vengeance against the man who fired him. Because you never really know. If there's truth to it, then you got all kind of problematic things. I mean, you could have legal issues, integrity of the game issues, but then that's where the challenge goes to the other owners. Are they going to hold another one of their fellow owners accountable, which, as we see in Washington, doesn't really seem to be their greatest strength. But, if some of these individual charges like that do prove to be true, and I think they're going to be very difficult. I think everything Brian is charging, it's going to be very difficult to actually prove to be true, even though we know that there are sham interviews involving black coaches, just to check the box for the Rooney Rule. Then the league's got a serious problem on its hands. I mean, I don't know how they would sanction one of their owners. We saw Daniel Snyder, they fined him $10 million and made him step away for his team for a year. But this really steeps into the integrity of the team and integrity of the game, I should say, if this is true. And of course, we've seen Ross come out and vehemently deny it. So we'll see. Hopefully this is not a rushed investigation to protect one of their own, because again, the optics of all of that, on top of the disparity in racial hiring among head coaches, there's just a really bad look for the NFL right now.
Yeah, and that's another thing. I mean, for the last 2 years, league doesn't have any HBCU players drafted, no HBCU players in the Super Bowl, and to this point, no black coaches being hired. Just
After firing two of the three.
and one of them had a winning record.
Brian Flores.
Right.
And then David Culley was playing a season with both hands tied behind his back.
Although
he got fired after 1 year.
And that's a tragedy professionally, but if you can pocket $22 million for a year's worth.
Yeah, I know that's what it says on paper.
Ooh, really? You know something you want to share?
I know. I mean, look, you just don't know. Sometimes these contracts have options on it, and if you're fired before something happens and the option's not picked up, you don't get that money. It's like a lot of NFL contracts. They say they're guaranteed for $75 million. Well, they're actually guaranteed for $35 million. But if the team picks up an option, then the rest of the money is guaranteed. His contract could have been set up the same way as well. And it sucks because David Culley is a wonderful man, an incredible man, the first black quarterback ever at Vanderbilt University. And yeah, he got his first opportunity to coach. He went in there on a kamikaze mission, did a hell of a job when they kept on trading away, the talent that he did have. You had the whole Deshaun Watson stuff. So we're getting way off track here.
Yeah.
But yeah, just the fact that there's only one black head coach and one Latino head coach and one Muslim head coach. If you want to put Robert Saleh in there, out of 32, it's a damn shame.
It really is. Now back
and nothing seems like it's going to change. I'm telling you right now, there's not one black coach I've talked to who thinks that any of these 9 hires is going to go to a person of color, even though Mike McDaniel, who'll probably get the Dolphins job, is biracial.
Okay, now let's bring it back to February 19th, the Legacy Bowl in New Orleans. Talk about what the players are going to experience, if you would. I know those of you who've been sitting on the board and have covered the Senior Bowl and things like that have a perspective, just like the people that organize the Celebration Bowl to give it that major college bowl feel. If you could compare what the HBCU kids are going to take part in as compared to, say, the kid that goes to the Senior Bowl, how is it going to look the same? How might it be different?
Yeah, Senior Bowl is a great comparison. So the day after the Super Bowl, the 100 draft eligible players arrive in New Orleans. The game's going to be played at Tulane Stadium. We could not have it at an NFL facility. So Tulane University has been incredibly welcoming and just can't thank them enough. But they arrive Monday. They have a dinner and they start hitting the on-field stuff Tuesday through Friday. NFL Network, myself, Charles Davis, and Bucky Brooks will be there reporting on these guys. So they're going to get daily exposure through the week, right? So they're going to go through practices. They've got a lot of other things. On Thursday and Friday, they have a career fair set up where the players themselves and students from regional HBCUs, Southern, Xavier, Dillard, Grambling, some of the other schools in that, whole Gulf Coast area will be able to come to this career fair and get their resumes out to several, sponsors, Coca-Cola, Home Depot, a lot of these people who are going to be having booths there. And then the actual game will be Saturday, 3:00 Eastern time, I believe. I'm not sure Eastern Central. I have to get that part. But we broadcast on NFL Network, myself and Charles Davis in the booth, Bucky Brooks on the sideline. So the exposure is going to be tremendous. And what's great is, a lot of players NFL players who did not attend HBCUs have really stepped in. One HBCU player, Teron Armstead, who went to Arkansas Pine Bluff, plays for the Saints. He stepped in to help sponsor stuff. Hopefully Teron will be able to step over and, stop by and give these kids some of his time. But Aaron Donald, the all-world defensive lineman from the Rams, who went to the University of Pittsburgh, he stepped in to sponsor. Patrick Mahomes, Texas Tech Chiefs quarterback, he will be there. But he stepped in to sponsor. Bobby Wagner, who has dedicated tons of financial resources to HBCUs, although he went to Utah State University, the Seahawks linebacker, he stepped up to take part of this. So we're just really grateful for all the folks who've stepped in to support this. These kids are going to have an incredible experience. It is well funded, is well sponsored. And again, the exposure that they're going to get, I'll just come back to this. They have an opportunity that they're going to need to seize.
Well, even if it doesn't make it to have a career fair there, is that a part of the culture of the Senior Bowl as well? Or is this a HBCU thing?
Well, it's a Legacy Bowl thing. I'm not
Mhm.
sure about the Senior Bowl, but it's a Legacy Bowl thing, and we felt that important. The New Orleans Saints are sponsoring this, and they felt their sponsorship really needs to be grassroots. It really needed to be New Orleans and regional. And Shanika Dabney Henderson, who was a vice president down there with the Saints, you put together this incredible committee. She got us these incredible interns to help out, from Dillard, from Xavier, from Grambling, from Southern. So we're just making sure that even those who are not going to be taking the field have opportunities to capitalize on the exposure that this game is going to bring them. I mean, again, trainers, coaches, all the ancillary people on the field, and the students in the area. Again, we have to get their resumes out early, and get people plugged in early so they've got an opportunity to be ahead of the game. And that was vitally important to the Saints and vitally important to the organizers of the HBCU Legacy Bowl.
And it just follows what the NCAA, have been saying for years in one of their advertising campaigns. Most students are going to go pro in something other than sports.
Right.
And to have that component speaks volumes to the organizers and people like yourself who get that. So before I let you go, the inquiring minds want to know, given that you, Bucky Brooks, and Charles Davis are going to be down there at the Legacy Bowl, Rich Eisen has already set the standard for running a 40. Now, if one of the brothers don't get down there and run a 40, I'm going to talk about you. Of the three of you, Brooks, okay, Davis, and yourself, who would have the lower 40 time?
Oh, Bucky. I'm coming in last. You got to remember, Bucky was a world-class sprinter in North Carolina and played in the NFL for about 7 years as a DB. And Bucky still looks like he can get it, Me and Charles could be huffing and puffing, bringing it up in the back, but nah, Bucky all day. Come on now.
Okay, so if you and Eisen are racing.
Oh, no, that's me, bro.
Oh, you got Eisen?
Yeah, I got Rich.
Oh, dude, I'm loving that. I want to see that at the Senior Bowl.
I'm risk averse. I do not want to pop an Achilles. I'll take him if it comes down to it, though.
You can put on even in sweats.
Sweats, jeans, dress shoes, whatever.
Because he runs his 40 in a suit. It's become the legend.
And track spikes. I don't care. I'll put on some J's.
That reminds me of the Willie Jeffries story when he told me he was coaching at Wichita State. Hey, kid, go down there and run down there and knock down a tree. Kid tried to knock down a tree. He went to South Carolina. Go down there and try to knock down a tree. Kid tried to knock down a tree. Came to Howard. Go down there and try to knock down a tree. Kid rose up and said, "Excuse me, coach." You know what I'm saying? That sounds like you, bro.
that is me all day. And the great Willie Jeffries, believe it or not, he, of course, the first black head coach at a Division I institute at Wichita State. He sent me some recruiting letters when he was at Wichita State. When I transferred from Missouri to Howard, I almost took a snap for him, but before I stepped on campus, I lost my stinger.
Well, you got it back in the journalism world, my friend, and thank you so much for spending some time with us and the folks here in the HBCU Sports Nation. Don't forget, coming up, it's February 19th. It is the HBCU Legacy Bowl on the NFL Network, live, local, and late breaking from New Orleans, where the best and the brightest stars from 2021's college football season will put their talents on display. And hopefully during the 3-day party, which has become the NFL draft, did you ever think that was going to be something as iconic as it is right now when you started?
No. And now it's next level. And it's going to be in Las Vegas this year? What?
Right. Anyway, hopefully we'll get to see one of those guys put on a cool hat and go up and hug Roger Goodell. And, to know that brothers like yourself are on the front lines, keeping it going. Congratulations on the work that you do, my friend, and we look forward to help buoy your efforts along.
Appreciate you, my brother.
Hey, no worries, my friend, and go Bears. I'll try to text you from Cleveland though, for sure.
Yeah, okay. Go Bears.
Hey, look, I saw the team, man, and I grudgingly might have to admit that you guys do have an advantage on the sidelines. And I'll just leave it at that.
All right.
All right.
All
Kenny,
right, Mark.
Kenny Blakeney getting it done. We'll have more
There
of
you
what you
go.
came here for on the other side as we continue with the HBCU Sports Nation. Holla back now. You hear?